Chapter 26. The Negation of God. In 1851, William Ewart Gladstone, 1809 to 1898, on a visit to the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, saw with horror the rottenness of that realm, its contempt for justice, and its use of torture. He denounced that realm as, quote, the negation of God erected into a system of government. End quote. Now, more than in Gladstone's day, this phrase characterized many states. Unhappily, these are not simply backward states, but the one-time Christian nations of the West. This, quote, negation of God, end quote, begins in the churches with their antinomianism, their humanism, and their open contempt for biblical religion. In November 1995, there was the joint annual meeting of the American Academy of Religion and the Society of Biblical Literature. 8,000 professors of religion, Bible scholars, and Christian theologians met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to declare feminist, homosexual, and other aberrant views to be acceptable and preferable to Orthodox Christianity. We have today nations and their politicians dedicated to the negation of God with the dedicated assistance of many churchmen and churches. The negation begins with the dismissal of belief in hell as religiously unworthy of religious belief. To reject belief in hell is to deny the need for justice. Hell tells us that justice has an essential and necessary place in the order of things because it represents the absolute righteousness or justice of all creation. To deny that there is a hell in the world to come means that man creates one in this world for all dissenters from the humanistic state. The Marxists have amply demonstrated this. The negation of God means that because hell and justice are denied their ultimacy, then law too is denigrated. Law ceases to represent God's law order and becomes simply the arbitrary will of the state. The state as a law institution gives way to the state as a bureaucracy that sets its own rules and bends men to them. The barren nature of the conservative movement is apparent in its critiques of the laity. It will confine itself to surface issues at best, not to their essential sources. If it criticizes materialism, it does so without reference to God, so that we have at most an ancient Hellenic idealism. An unequivocal biblical faith is seen as devoid of any intellectual status. The modern states and the humanistic academic realm give us a telling example of the world of the Marquis de Sade without his openness. By evasion and by claims to intellectual freedom, much literature has become a form of the black mass, a means of profanation. Sacrilege lends status to films, novels, dramas, and lectures. Because Paul in Romans 1:17-32 tells us that homosexuality is the expression of man's radical hatred of God and of the burning out of man, homosexuals are given a place of great consideration and concern by apostate men both in and out of the church. The desire of apostate man, as Jean-Paul Sartre recognized in Sade, is for absolute evil, a total purity of evil, and of purity in the hatred of God. Artists in particular have pursued this goal of profanation, blasphemy, and evil with intensity. Richard N. Cole held that, quote, to question values is the very birthright of the artist, end quote. This means that the artist, as a Sadean prophet, dedicates himself to creating a new and radically meaningless world, in effect, to making a hell on earth. The biblical words for hell are Gehenna or Hinnom, or the Valley of Hinnom, which was the city dump of Jerusalem. It was a place of fire and worms, the fire consuming the trash and the worms devouring waste materials. A city dump is a place of miscellaneous objects, unrelated one to the other, and so an emblem of meaninglessness. The negation of God is the negation of meaning. Thus, as Jean-Paul Sartre's No Exit depicted, there is no true communication in hell, in essence, only monologues. John Milton in Paradise Lost has Satan declare when hurtled into hell, quote, "Which way I fly is hell, myself am hell, and in the lowest deep, a lower deep, still threatening to devour me opens wide, to which the hell I suffer seems a heaven." End quote. The damned, for Milton, are not only in hell, they are hell. Milton speaks of Satan as having, quote, "the hot hell that in him always burns." End quote. The damned are in hell because they are in all their being themselves a hell. Their being is a negation of God, and therefore of meaning. In many, many leading persons in 20th century art in its various areas, this loss of meaning is very apparent, and often an increasing inability to function. The same is true of other disciplines as they forsake meaning. John Peter Rumrich rightly observed, quote, "For Milton, all knowledge fears moral significance." End quote. This is precisely what the modern academic scholar denies, any relationship between morality and knowledge. This premise leads to a denial of meaning to knowledge because it is morality that tells us what is good and evil. That which is neither good nor evil becomes, before long, meaningless to Sadean man. In fact, Sadean man denies meaning in order to eliminate any moral criteria. The negation of meaning is also the negation of life. If nothing is either good or evil, and if all things are meaningless, then what difference is there between life and death? There is a proneness to suicide wherever such thinking prevails. Conversely, the Bible tells us that with judgment, quote, "the books are opened," Daniel 7:10. And Revelation refers again and again to the, quote, "book of life," end quote. There is, with judgment, a righting of all wrongs and an opening up of the fullness of meaning, so that all factuality is seen as having God's total purpose in and behind it, Romans 8:28. In heaven, we see the totality of meaning, whereas in hell, all meaning is negated because God is denied. The negation of the triune God is thus more than an ecclesiastical concern, because it follows from such a negation that life itself is rejected. The culture that pursues such a course is suicidal. We thus live in an era when church and state, the school, academy, the arts, sciences, and more are engaged in a suicidal course of action. The general unconcern is an aspect of the will to death.